Ready? Yeah. Hello, folks. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Anderson Ranch. I'm Betsy Alwyn, Artistic Director of Ceramics and Expanded Media, and I'm excited to introduce Nacho Carbonell. Before we start, please silence your cell phones. Thank you. I also want to begin by saying that Anderson Ranch acknowledges that our campus resides on the traditional ancestral territory of the Ute people, who called the Roaring Fork Valley and beyond home for over 800 years. Through our mission to promote a wide range of arts, cultures, and voices, we honor this history by making this an inclusive campus where we learn, work, and create together. Born in Spain in 1980, Nacho Carbonell is now based in Eindhoven, the Netherlands, where he works alongside his team of designers and artists in an open warehouse. He graduated in 2003 from Cardinal Herrera University in Spain and went on to study at the Design Academy Eindhoven. In 2013, he won Designer of the Year in his home country, Spain. He started collaborating with the Carpenters Workshop Gallery in 2015 and has since become one of the leading artists that the gallery represents worldwide. Carbonell is known for his tactile approach to sculpture, which plays with textures, experimental techniques, and natural materials. Carbonell's pieces have been shown in museums around the world, such as the Groninger Museum in the Netherlands, the 2121 Design Site in Japan, the Fons National d'Art Contemporain, Paris, France, the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, the Art Institute of Chicago, and the Mint Museum, Charlotte, North Carolina. His work, One Cedar Concrete Tree, was on view at the Denver Art Museum last year as part of the exhibition Biophilia. It's now part of the permanent collection at the Cincinnati Art Museum. Please join me in giving Nacho a warm welcome.
Hello. How are you doing? Good. Today is a special day. Today actually is the first time that actually my family, my full family, my kids, actually, they joined me for my first lecture together. And actually, I need to say that they have been helping me a lot these days. So everything that you are going to see today is also thanks to them. Actually, Luna just came to this morning to the bed and say, I don't want to go. I want to stay here. I think that really represents how good time we had here, and how, at the same time, how hard we had work to kind of make something. So make something with the time given, with the context given. And I need to thanks Anderson Ranch to kind of host us here and kind of make us feel like a family, and everyone that has been here, all the artists in residency that just made me feel very comfortable, and then had actually given me also a very good hand in the times I needed. So, and all the staff. Okay, so thank you very much for all of you. Okay, we are gonna talk about a bit about the work. I think the work that we have done during these 2 weeks cannot be disconnected to from where I'm coming from the work that I have done before. So I'm gonna try to give a quick retrospective of everything that I have done during this last almost 20 years. I don't believe it. Time flies, actually, when you're having fun. Anyway, Nacho Carbonell. I always like to kind of start with this word that is the word of adaptation. I think we are all the time adapting. We are all the time metamorphosing. We are all the time mutating, changing. And I think we need to adapt, because I think adapting is the only somehow phenomenon that we can really apply to ourselves to be able to survive in a new environment, in a new context. And actually, as you can see when we read the news, our context is quickly changing in all the different directions. So we need to adapt. Actually, I kind of studied industrial design, and now I just do it other things. And then I all the time think about what can I contribute. And actually, adaptation is kind of applied to the idea of process. Process changes everything. Actually, adaptation is not something would you wake up and the day after you had adapted to a new medium. It takes time. So I think I hope in this lecture we will talk about this concept of time. Let's talk about like adaptation and my first surrounding, my first context. This is me. Well, this is actually like a good friend of mine, my uncle, the house of my grandparents, the beautiful blue Mediterranean Sea, like palm trees, all colorful, good food, good family. In here is where actually I grew up until I was 20-something, and where actually I studied industrial design. That was like actually like after being like a very bad student, I think like I discovered industrial design, and actually is what it changed my life. Actually, before I studied industrial design, it was like a transition moment where actually I went to study the year before I went to the university to a very important town for me that is called Goshen, Indiana. Yes. It's the States. The States really changed my life in that sense. Like, of course, for sure, you all know Goshen, Indiana, very popular, full of Amis. It was like actually the first time I had like a very introspective trip, and actually I started like working like I'm working here, like in woodworking, ceramics, and actually like I discovered that design was a possibility. So I went back to my context and I studied design. After like 3 years studying design, actually I thought like this is something I really like and really enjoy. So I couldn't believe like it was just finished. So I just kind of like decided to move to a new context to keep a study or like to keep progressing in my education. And I landed here. That was like Eindhoven 20 years ago. It's never like this anymore. Actually, like it never snow anymore. Anyway, I just changed the context. Actually, I passed from being surrounded of family, friends, good food, to kind of like being in a context where actually I am alone. I have no family, I have no friends, I have no good food. Like the colors had disappeared. So actually, I go through this kind of like introspective trip. And actually, like everything I learned that it was right in design in Spain, it was wrong in Eindhoven. So I passed from being like a very good student in design in Valencia to a terrible student in Eindhoven. And I was like, fuck, I need to kind of like find out the way to kind of like somehow reconnect to this kind of like a freedom that actually was given at in the design academy. So I went through a lot of struggles. I just failed. I keep failing like all my all my courses, until I actually, in my first course, I just found this place. That it was like a church. It was an abandoned church in Eindhoven, where actually, together with another 10, 15 friends, we anti-squat. So inside of this church, actually, there was we create our own kind of like sanctuary. In this sanctuary, we create like our own first studio. This studio actually allowed me to kind of like find my own methodology, my own process. I just kind of like start like using this cocoon that I create there, where actually I will explore all my first materials and all my first shapes. At that time was like 2006, 2007, where actually I create like this first project. This first project is called Pump It Up. It talks about like this idea of adaptation. Actually, it talks about this idea of like, is the video on? Yeah. So in this, I always think about like we desire furniture, we want to, or we desire things, we desire objects, but the things they don't desire anymore, they don't need us. So like I just wanted to reverse this thing, where actually like the object itself, actually it needs from you. So like actually this object, it does not reveal their beauty until, or the function, until actually you don't really spend some time with it. So what is happening here, that is like while she's sitting on the object, the animals are kind of like inflating. So like your own body weight is kind of like pushing the air to kind of like create the final design. That is kind of a hybrid. It's a combination between yourself and that object. And again, it does not happen immediate. It's something that it takes time. It takes about like 3 minutes to kind of like somehow digest. Actually, she today is like the mother of my kids, and actually she was so light that actually I needed to help her to kind of like just kind of like be able to pump these kids that we had like together in 2007. That it was like these little animals. So anyway, this kind of like object talks about the idea of life, the idea of death, the idea of being temporary or permanent. And nothing is permanent. Everything is changing all the time. So the moment that you were standing out of this object, the object actually just start like disappearing, almost melting away, as the objects I think like we are going to be seeing today. They are here today. They might not be here tomorrow. So we all kind of like need to be conscious of this idea of passing of time. I graduated with another object that it was like it's called a Dream of Sun. Actually, like this is created with the sun. Actually, the same way that I was creating like sand castles back in Spain. So I created a shape. It was a shape that was very straight, made of sand. And what I did later on is just I coated with a rubber, as latex rubber, that actually allowed me later on to kind of like keep the form, but also change the form. So the idea again is like the final user is the one that has the power to change the final shape. So here, from the initial shape that I offer you, in this case myself, I start like changing the object, mutating the object, adapting the object to my own comfort. Creating objects that actually like they adapt to you is the only way that you appropriate those things. I think like it's all about the experience that we have with things. If we don't have that an experience with something, like it doesn't have the same value. Why do we throw things? It's because I think like I believe like we don't have a connection with them. So it's like, how can we create objects that they really have a connection with us? And I think like the most valuable thing is these experiences that we have with those around us that kind of like make the thing existing. And again, another project that adapts. Actually, I made the antithesis of this thing, of the other previous project, that it looked like hard, but like it was soft. And this one, it looks soft, but it's hard. So like I create like some bags, and then like in these bags, like I go into the context. In this case, I run a tree. I just kind of like pour some concrete. I let it kind of like set. I rip off the textile, and it just stay as a kind of like a soft, morbid thing. So my idea was like I could go anywhere. I could go into this corner, and then like I could place this bag. I will cast the concrete, and it will take the same typologies of what is in this surrounding. That was 2007. I just graduated. I got invited to kind of like get like participate in an in a context. In this competition, actually, I just designed this object. There was an object I called like hot kettle. Actually, it had a layer. This layer, actually, when the water was getting warm, it disappeared, and it just appeared a message that it say like, I'm hot, I'm very, very hot, I'm hot, except in the handle. So somehow you could know how to handle the object. Honestly, I don't like the object. I don't like it. I mean, like it's not like it's like my favorite object, but I really like what it made me feel. Because I was just recently graduated, was 2007, I won a competition, I won 10,000 euros. I thought like with these 10,000 euros, I could basically retire. I was like, wow, I made it. So I was like super successful in 3 months from being like a piece of nothing to a kind of like really like very recognizable, very recognized young artist, young designer. And that was like the day that I won the competition. I went into the cliff and I felt like, wow, I feel on the top of the mountain. So again, like even though you don't like the object, you really like how it made me feel. So it's a very important object for me, even if the shape is more or less popular to all of you. 2008, I go with my family, with my friends. It was New Year's Eve. I started like making compulsively like these paper hats, like I really like to celebrate like the New Year's Eve. And I thought like, okay, this is the year of paper. So I just go back to Eindhoven, where I live, and I just explore what is paper? Where can I find paper? I go to the dump, and I find like all these mountains of paper that I start like collecting and recycling. So like actually like the paper also like was kind of like given to us like through all these mailbox with all these newspapers that like sometimes we don't even have time to read or like this news. So actually what I wanted to kind of like create is like this idea of a chair where actually you can sit down, you can read your news, you can lay down into your back, into the right side, your artistic side of the brain, and actually think about like what you have been reading. It's about like a bit like this idea of digesting, thinking, meditating, thinking what is happening around, not like kind of like swap and go into the next page. So it was again to kind of like slow you down and actually make you think. We create like the bench. The bench is kind of like a hybridation between what is public and what is private. Sometimes like we are in a bus stop, we kind of like are surrounded of people, or like in the metro, and like, but we are in our own kind of like world. We don't think about like what is happening around. We are kind of like immersed in our own thoughts. So again, like this hybridation between public and private. And then the same here with the lover's chair. Actually, we never behave the same when we are in public than when we are in private with our couple, right? We know what we do like when we are in private, but in the facing to the public, we can like behave in a different way. So it's kind of like this reflection on how we are when we are indoors or when we are outdoors. We keep going with this collection in 2008, 2009, 2010. And here, what is happening again, like how context and material and technique, it really kind of like dictate the process. So at the same time, while I was working on this kind of like chair with cocoons, I started collecting like all the leaves in my surrounding. And at the same time, I think like, what is a tree? And then like the idea of like thinking what is a tree and having like the idea of like all this material that was waste from a tree, I had a lot of sawdust that comes from the industry, and I had a lot of leaves that came from nature. What I did, like I grind everything together, I mix it with glue, and we create like what we call the tree chair. This tree chair is a chair that actually is trying to discover from where it's coming from. It asks herself like, where am I from? And I thought like, actually I'm from these trees outside, and it tried to kind of like makes herself a tree again. But a chair cannot become a tree anymore, so like it becomes like this kind of like new image of what is a tree. So you could kind of like climb in, and actually the same way that trees can really give shelter to insects, this one it could kind of like give shelter to human beings. Again, you go, it's like it's not division between like working and resting and family and working. It's everything blend together. I love scuba diving, I love snorkeling, and I find like this little piece 20 meters down while I was diving, and I thought like, actually how much really this little piece influenced my work when I kind of like look at the characteristics of like the rusted metal, the concrete, and how like it just died, like the thing actually made me think like how actually like this can really be able to be the catalysis of like a collection like this one that we made like at the Espacio Ferré in 2010. We kind of like create like, this was like a chair that I created for as my office in the middle of this church. It was like just able to kind of like only put the laptop. And actually like what we did in this model, we finished it like in 15, 18 different ways. These are only the models, but each of them had a different material. So each material, it informed a different character. Sometimes you could be like rusted, like more like a grumpy old, yeah, like sometimes like me. And sometimes like it could be wild, sometimes it could be soft. So everything like actually like, again, like I relate materials with character. This was kind of like the final piece for this collection. In all the collection, actually, like the chair and the table, they were together. In this one is the most rebellious one. It just kept growing. It created like this bush of iron around it, like kind of like protecting, and actually it divided what is the chair and what is the table. But it had some wheels, so actually you could kind of like put them together, and it becomes one again. This is us working, and actually what you work is like really like always you think. So in that until now, you have seen all chairs. I just, these 5 years, I tried always to make a lamp. Every time I tried to make a lamp, it became a chair. And I tried to make another lamp, and it became a chair again. So after 5 years, finally, I thought, like, okay, this time is the year of the light. So like, we made like this collection that is called Luciferase. And actually, Luciferase, it does not refer to Lucifer. Everyone is very scared when they hear the title. It's like really, it's about like this phenomenon that is like this kind of like a sea creature deep in the sea. They have like this light, and what they do is they attract because they are predators. They attract the prey. So this is what it's trying to do. The same these lamps. They have like kind of like a very intriguing way to kind of like make you kind of like want to wander inside of the piece. It passed the time, and then like suddenly like again like a moment of changing, metamorphosing, thinking about time and what is happening. This was the moment that actually like Paloma was pregnant, and then we started having the idea of kids. And then I think like, okay, what I have done through my career and how actually time passed. So I create like these objects. That one, it was made out of soap. This one, it was made out of plaster. And it has like this kind of like arm that is kind of like moving. And it's kind of eroding. And it's kind of like revealing the next layer, the next chapter. In this case, I had like this metal broom that just make like, again, like the solid, again, dust. Plaster is dust. You put liquid, it goes into solid, and it goes back to dust. And the soap was the same, a piece of soap. We can see it here, also very colorful. And then like it was going down the water and going up the soap and then eroding. It's this idea of like every day we go, we wash our faces, we kind of like take a shower, and we are different than the day before. We are a new person. Everything flows. Are we doing okay on time? Okay. We made a book. At that time, like, okay, like let's think about like what all we have done. We made like the book of Rebus Natura, and then like it's again like this idea of like the new chapter. Already Noé start appearing around, and then like we made like this already start making like bigger installation. It's in the house of a client. We made like a massive room inside of their house where actually we designed every single detail. This actually for me is like a breakthrough where actually I can really explore and put all the ideas on something. This is like, again, like one of the last cocoons that we do in this way. We make like this collaboration with the Groninger Museum, and it's actually when the Carpenters Workshop start appearing in our lives, and then like they like this thing, and that's the moment that we start working together. They come to the studio. I'm making like something weird with like the net, that actually this is something like the same way I was doing like the chairs with the cocoons. They like it, and then like we kind of like embark ourselves with this kind of like a mission of like kind of like, okay, let's explore what is like a light mesh, you know? Actually, like again, like everyone was telling me like I was a bit of like a dark person because of the kind of work that I was doing, like with all these kind of like caves around, and I was like, I didn't want to kind of like be seen like this, and so like it was the moment to kind of like open up, and then still having that mesh, but like instead of like kind of like making it opaque, making it more of transparent. So we just I just start like compulsively creating, as actually like I'm always doing, and I think maybe some of you just saw me there like working with the eyes. So like this was the same way. Okay, one, another one, and another one. I want to explore how far I can go with this collection. And still like after 10 years, I get excited to kind of like work in each single of these pieces. And this was like one of the pieces that we create for the new gallery that they opened in London at the Ladbroke Hall. And that was like kind of like a bit of like, okay, we can go big, but like now what? Of course, like we kind of like the collection is very large. because again, like I get like very entertained, and every single piece that when I make them in a small is kind of like a new kind of like research on how we can do things. Some of them are more organic, some of them are more cubistic, some of them they have glass, some of them they have wood, metal. So it's all about like really like exploring and getting into this kind of like trance moment. I feel like we hear like the other day Kennedy also talking about this idea of like being in the trance. No, I think like that's how many times I feel when I go into into work. Actually, it's about like being down there somewhere in your brain that actually like it just kind of like it's not yourself. It's just like you, the material, and let's see what happens. So that was like a part of like our last exhibition there, where actually I think like, okay, we had enough of this kind of light mesh thing. So like, let's explore also different shapes, different ways of making things. Then the glass appeared like in a kind of like more Tiffany technique. We started like collecting all these different glass from second-hand shops that they are being broken. Then we take them with the lead and tin, and then we just start preparing these things. We started working with ceramics. I have no idea how to work with ceramics, but at the same time, I just explore. So I create like a lot of small little things that somehow later on I sew them together. The same with this one. It's like kind of like from the broken stones from the previous pieces. I take them here. We embrace them with metal, and then I recreate something with them. In this last collection this year, I said like, okay, I need to explore things. I need to get out of my comfort zone. I just kind of like, I told to a few of you, sometimes I kind of like become a manager because like in the studio, we are 10 people. So I just kind of like keep jumping from one place to another. So I don't have as much time as I had here in the Anderson Ranch of like 2 weeks of being by myself and the material. So here I just allowed to kind of like do myself like a small miniatures on clay to kind of like really explore new shapes, new forms, new language. So trying to create like a new code for myself. And this allowed me to like to spend only just 10 minutes or 1 hour doing this one. So I had like a huge collection of few hundreds of these ones that I would like to see them like these are like the little seeds of like maybe future new projects in a kind of like maybe larger or maybe this scale. Let's see. And then like also like, as you can see, like the previous one actually informs certain shapes for the new kind of like cabinets that we have been doing. Like these cabinets for me, like I'm like, so eager to just go back to work into this one. They are made out of cork, this one actually, and this one is made out of like cork and also like wood chips. So that one, it was trying to kind of like make a tree again by placing this thing. Like we also use recycled glass to kind of like make like all the shelves. And this one is fully made out of cork and actually like some kind of like baskets made out of metal. And for me, like these ones are like kind of like almost like more the cabinets that are portals. You open them and you enter into them almost. And I think like it's just kind of like try to invite you again in. This again like the bark of the tree, and then like inside you have like kind of like this fossilized tree made out of metal. Also kind of like colorful and a lot of movement. It was great. During COVID, we made like all these kind of like a different bench, desk with this idea of like actually we all needed to work from home with our desk, and so it was kind of like a bit of a place where to kind of like travel. This is like a la mesa. That is like kind of like a representation of this table that we had in back home in Spain, where actually like we shared the paella. There was the similar table that my grandparents in size that my grandparents they had, and then like I just replicate with like a fishing net and sand and things like that, playing like as I was playing in my childhood. I tried to produce this table to again feel at home. It's very important. I live in the Netherlands, so I need to feel like at home. And after 20 years there, I still don't feel like at home. But like when I work, I feel like home. During this process also, like actually during all this year and all this collection with the new cabinets, with the new projects, actually I just put all the crap that I had together in the studio, and I use this as kind of like a place where I actually take all my material leftovers and dump them into this kind of like mural that will become part of like kind of like the context of the exhibition. So it's nothing like specific. It's just kind of like to give context and contextualize the work. You don't see it here in in detail, but like it's extremely tactile. You know, that is something like a very important element on my work. Okay, and then we arrived to Anderson Ranch. So like this is like the piece that we donate for Anderson Ranch for the auction, and that's the reason that I'm here today. So like it's this kind of like a piece that is made out of like glass, fused glass, and I think like was the starting of like this journey of casting ice. 3 weeks ago we had a meeting, and then we talked about like, okay, and they asked me like, Nacho, what do you want to do? I have no idea. But I thought, like, let's start it from here. I mean, like, let's use this as kind of like somehow the starting point to kind of like embark ourselves into this journey, into this process. As I said, like at the end, like we should not be dictators of our own ideas. We should let the ideas to kind of like somehow flow and see where they lead us. But like I thought, like I'm gonna take this one, I'm gonna reproduce it in Anderson Ranch, and it's winter, so it's gonna be icy. So like let's make it in ice. So I just come here with the idea of like making like this small lamp in ice. Of course, you arrive here, you are impressed about like this beautiful surrounding. I talk to William, and then like we talk about like, yeah, like this, and like this, and then like at the end, like no, like this. Mistake, but we didn't know. I mean, like you need to be ambitious. So like I started like composing like this huge piece that I just wanted to cast fully in ice. For that, I need to develop like this huge mold that I spent like 3-4 days, like after like 10 years not making a mold, and like I just kind of like somehow encountered myself like creating like huge mold for the ice. I discovered at the same time I started making like a small ice test, where actually like I see how hard it is to kind of actually to freeze. So actually I think like, okay, for this huge mold, I will need to freeze a lot of small things to fill it up to be able to kind of like cast it on time. It still was not cold enough, so don't expect to see this one today. But like at the same time, like I'm just like really every morning, every night, I'm casting ice, and at the same time, like I want to kind of like have colors on it, and for that I just use like food coloring to kind of like be able somehow like to kind of like go back into the environment and not having like any harm into it, and then like I start seeing like beautiful results where actually like the glass behaves the ice behaves almost like glass, and then but like in a way like I can really like almost weld it together by like just pouring a bit more of water and adding it into the mold and letting it cool down during the night and having like all these fascinating results. So this is like kind of like some of the close-ups that we just took yesterday. We will kind of like do a little journey today, and then we will see all the tests, because at the end it has been like a bit of a research process here. And actually like some of the outcomes, they will be like more like this size, that it was a bit more manageable for the time being and for the weather conditions, where actually in this place, what we will see, instead of like using like electrical components, as I was using the other ones, I use a flame. And then like slowly it will kind of like melt, and then we will be able to see this and maybe create like these beautiful, fascinating icicles in colors. They will look like a unicorn horn, right, Luna? Yeah, let's see. So I'm here like also shaping with a bit of fire. So like every 5 or 10 minutes, I have a new idea. So like what I think, like instead of like think about it, you make it. And then you fail and you make it, and you fail and you make it. So that's something I always also tell and advise to everyone, and mainly to my students when they ask me like, Sulay, yes, do it. Do it. Let the process guide you somewhere. Like carving it, welding. So I think I did a bit of everything, but I didn't want to miss anything. So that had been my experience here, and thank you very much for listening. Okay.
Okay, is this on? All right, folks. Thank you, Nacho. That was amazing. We have a few moments for questions. I'll take questions. Anyone have a question? I'll bring the mic over.
Pigment actually goes into the center because I feel like everything starts freezing around, and then like it pushes the pigment in the middle, and then it creates like these beautiful kind of like balls there. Yeah, question. Yeah, I'm just like
Good question. Yeah. Hey.
Thanks, Nacho. My question is, how do you decide when your forms are finished?
I need to take a plane tomorrow. I think like normally that's how it answers always. You have a plane to catch, you have an exhibition to build, so that's when actually you just kind of like put all the energies and put all the pieces together. You saw it, I mean like we had all the crap during these days there in the studio, and today we knew that we were gonna want to kind of like see it, present it, enjoy it, so that we just kind of like put it out there, and it is what it is. Could have been better, more defined, more maybe, but like then like we will continue next year, no?
Nacho, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You talked a little earlier about your warehouse, your team back home, and then coming here alone to work. Talk a little bit about what it's like to work with a team and going kind of in and out of that practice. And I guess saying that in the sense that half this room are practicing artists here on campus or here in the Valley, and sort of how you look at that as an artist and what you would suggest to other artists and sort of that exploring group and individual work.
Should I take the micro? Yeah, sorry. I think like it just brought me back, you know, because it brought me back to this time that I was in the church there all by myself in my little cave, in my little sanctuary, and I was like non-sleeping, I mean like really, you feel like you are under drugs, and I don't take drugs actually, but like really like it's like you are in this trance situation, and that's how I felt here when I arrived here and I saw this thing, and I actually felt like the responsibility of like I want to make the best of it. I want to make the best out of my time here. All these facilities, all this kind of like context, all this possibility of being by myself. So I took it. It's true that at the end, like maybe I was feeling a bit lonely and I needed some assistance, so that's why I called my family and I told them to come. But still, actually, like I was very, very much by my own here, and I think like that I need to thank you for this opportunity. And actually, like sometimes we don't have the time to do this, or we don't want to make the time of it because we always feel like we are very busy, you know. And I'm busy. I mean, like every morning we were doing like these meetings with like Europe about like, okay, these other installations and things that we are making. We are working for a next big exhibition in a museum in Rome, and we are doing this and we are doing that. So if I think rationally, I will not be here. But like if you just close your eyes and you think, like, okay, we need to make this, and then like suddenly like, you arrive here and you're like, okay, if I'm not there, I'm gonna be here. But here. And I think like this is important, I mean, this idea of like being somewhere is very important. Actually, like I have no social media. I have not even WhatsApp. People hate me for that. But in a way, it just kind of like keeps me a bit of, as an outsider and kind of like focus on my own ideas. There are less interruptions, let's say. And yeah, again, intensity is important. And that's what I experience here.
Hi, Nacho. I love the video of you jumping on that couch, and your work is so tactile. And I'm going to admit I've gone up to the ice sculptures and touched them. And I imagine you as the type of person who goes into an exhibition at a museum where you're not supposed to touch and really wanting to touch and interact with materials. So I'm curious to you in your practice and in your discipline, how important is interaction to you?
Interaction is everything. As we saw, like the first project is really about like you sitting there It's about like you belonging. This chair that actually is sucking you in. So that's why actually I said like I tried for 5 years making a lamp, and it became a chair, because at that moment like I didn't know how actually like if I lose the interaction by like the tactility, by like you belonging into it, I will kind of like lose this connection. But finally with the light, I just kind of like managed to somehow create something that is not tactile, but like it's kind of like create a space. It creates an environment. And then at the end, like you are not in the piece, but you are in the environment that the piece is creating. And I hope like actually that's what we are trying to achieve with the object, with these light objects, that it creates a bit of an environment where you belong. And I think that that's very important in the work. Yes?
Bring your mic, Chris.
Thank you, Nacho.
You're
I'm
welcome.
curious how you are in the Netherlands now and not in Spain or a warm climate. What keeps you working in Netherlands?
Sadomaso. No, I think like it's just like it's a bit of a routine, or like you just develop. As I said, like the process, you don't know where it's gonna guide you. When I went to the Netherlands, I went for 1 year, and I said like 1 year and I'm back. I said, wow, the second year, and then I managed to graduate. The third year, I found the church. So like, where do you find like 1,500 square meters for free to kind of like develop your work? I mean, I cannot miss this opportunity, so you take the opportunity. And then like suddenly like it appears another building. So at the end, like life is about opportunities, you know? And I think like that's why I stay there. And right now, actually, it's true like the opportunities are kind of like being finished in Eindhoven, and now we are in this moment of transition, where actually like we are losing the space that we have been renting, and we need to kind of like decide if we want to stay there or we need to move. At the same time, actually, I need to say like we just bought a farm in Spain where we want to create like a mini Anderson ranch for ourselves, and then to be able to somehow to escape there more and more often, and to have more excuses where to go and to create things, and to again plant a little seed to be able to kind of like maybe someday go and spend more time back in Valencia.
Do we have one more question? Perfect, Betsy.
Nacho, you had mentioned earlier on when you were showing your chairs that you use material to create character. You infuse your objects with the character of the material. But you also make objects that are very much about your character. And I'm wondering where you find that balance between what you put in and what the material's input is.
It's just a dialogue, no? I think like again, like I could not design this. I was not planning to do this. This ball happened. So at the end, like, how much do I put on it? I just put the pigment, and then like the process just made the rest. And then now I take this, and then I put them together. We will see in like some of the things that we have done, and I stack them together. And then probably it will snow, and it will melt, and it will create something else. So.
And you take a torch to some of them too.
And I take a torch to kind of speed up the process a bit. But like again, it's this dialogue of like what is going to be happening with it. Take it.
Thank you, Nacho. Everyone, there's be a studio tour after this, so you can learn more and see more. We'll walk around campus. There are some things that Nacho has installed. So thank you very much for coming. And we have another lecture coming up, Jasmine Wahi. That's Wednesday. Thank you. Wednesday at 4:30. So we'll see you then. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I loved it when you said Goshen. Yeah.